Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast Special Edition Series, where I preview the 2020 NBA playoffs, coming to you from the bubble in Orlando, Florida. Will be the NBA playoffs. It should be fun. Go round by round, make some predictions, and talk about each team as well. We'll start with the first round. We'll start in the Eastern Conference. We'll start with the 1-seeded Milwaukee Bucks against the 4-seeded Orlando Magic. The Milwaukee Bucks obviously have the best record in the NBA this season, going 56-17. Orlando 33-40 is your 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee was not very good in the restart games. They went 3-5. But in fairness to them, they had that 1 seed essentially locked up before the restart. So they really didn't have to play for much. There were some games that had some people alarmed because they couldn't close out versus a good team with a elite player that could score, like James Harden and the Rockets, and Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis of the Mavericks. Well, there you got two elite guys, and then obviously Westbrook's on on Houston as well. And that was a game, as I alluded to a couple seconds ago, that the Bucks failed to close out in a game that they were up multiple points in. Giannis will probably be the league MVP this year. Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez are still around. Eric Bledsoe is somebody that had a bad playoffs last year. The Bucks are counting on him to rebound. Pat Connaughton's emerged as a really good role player for them. So is Dante DiVincenzo. Robin Lopez off the bench as well. You got some interesting players there. Your starting fives, obviously. Bledsoe, Covington. Middleton. I have Covington in my head because I'm thinking of the Rockets. So, Bledsoe, Middleton, Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Wesley Matthews is your starting five. Wesley Matthews isn't that good anymore. I mean, he hits threes. He's not a good defensive player anymore. And I think DiVincenzo should actually be starting for the Bucks instead of Wesley Matthews. The Magic. Obviously, Jonathan Isaacs got injured and hurt his ACL, so he's out for the season, and he's out for most of next season as well. So that's a huge franchise setbacker for the Orlando Magic, as I alluded to on the podcast after Isaacs got hurt. You still got Nikola Vucevic and Evan Fournier, DJ Augustine, Markelle Fultz, Terrence Ross. I did that the other day too. I called him Tyson Ross, Terrence Ross. Aaron Gordon as well. And their starting five is Vucevic, Gordon, Fultz, DJ Augustine, and Fournier. So that's their starting five right now. Isaacs was starting for them. And then I believe Fultz was coming off the bench, or maybe it was DJ Augustine coming off the bench. But now their starting five is Augustine and Fournier in the backcourt, and then at small forward, Fournier is small forward, Fultz at the 2 guard, and then up front Gordon and Vucevic. I talked about Terrence Ross. He's a good 6th man for them. Mo Bamba's there. Or did he leave the bubble? I think Mo Bamba left the bubble. So it's just unfortunate for the Magic. That Jonathan Isaac injury was a huge blow to them. And with Isaacs there, maybe they would be somewhat interesting against the Bucks, but I'm sorry. I just don't see how they win this series, let alone win a game. So I'm going to say the Milwaukee Bucks sweep the Orlando Magic, and I believe it's minus 135, the sweep. And it is or it's up to 175 now. I'm lucky that I got it at a lower number. Bucks and 5's 2-1. Bucks and 6 is 8-1. Bucks and 7's 28-1. Orlando and 7 60-1, and Orlando to sweep. Orlando and 5 and Orlando to 6 respectively 100-1. Milwaukee's minus 8,000. Orlando 18-1 to win the series outright, and the Bucks are 12-point favorites in Game 1 on Tuesday against the Magic. So, Bucks sweep the Magic in the first round. The next series in the East, you have the 2-seeded Toronto Raptors against the 7-seeded Brooklyn Nets. The Raptors reminded everybody in the restart session that they're the reigning champions and they're here to stay, even without Kawhi Leonard. I think that Pascal Siakam has had a good restart. They had some injuries, but they locked up the 2 seed and then they rested some guys. So they should be able to get ready to go. Their starting 5, it's obviously Lowry, OG Anunoby, Siakam, Ibaka, and Marc Gasol. And then Norman Powell off the bench. So it's a solid team there in Toronto. And I think that Lowry really silenced a lot of demons last year, obviously in the postseason. And they were very impressive in the bubble, as I alluded to before. On the other side, Brooklyn, they're hammered with injuries. Obviously, no Kyrie Irving, no Kevin Durant. You won't see them until 2021. So they're not in Orlando. Neither Spencer Dinwiddie. He opted out. And he was having a good year for Brooklyn as well. You have, starting at point guard, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Tyler Johnson is now the starting point guard for the Brooklyn Nets, which to me is crazy. He's somebody that's bounced around over the past few years and whatnot. Karis LeVert's been unbelievable in the restart. You got Joe Harris. Garrett Temple's actually been starting for them as well. And Rodions Caruso, who was promising his rookie year, regressed this year, but showed some signs of life in the bubble. And then Jared Allen's their starting center. You have Timothy Luau, Carabout off the bench. Tyler Johnson's actually off the bench for them. I thought he was starting. Justin Anderson off the bench. Lance Thomas, the ex-Knick, off the bench, and Jeremiah Martin. So these Brooklyn guys are playing real hard. Jamal Crawford signed with the team. He's going to be coming off the bench for them as well. So it's going to be an interesting to see if Brooklyn is competitive with Toronto. And that said, in terms of a series pick, I'm going to go with the Toronto Raptors in 5 games over the Brooklyn Nets. And that is plus 190. Toronto sweep was minus 150. Toronto in 6 is plus 650. I like that, actually, from a value standpoint. And then Toronto in 7 is 23-1. Brooklyn in 7 is 65-1. Brooklyn the sweep, Brooklyn in 5, and Brooklyn in 6, each 100-1. The Raptors are minus 8,000, just like the Bucks are. And the Brooklyn Nets are 18-1 to win the series against the Raptors. And by the way, Toronto 53-19 on the season, Brooklyn 35-37. You have the 3-seeded Boston Celtics against the 6-seeded Philadelphia 76ers. Boston 48-24 on the season. Philadelphia 43-30. Boston has surprised a lot of people this season, not just before the stoppage, but in the bubble as well. They really, people really thought that they were going to take a step back due to the loss of Kyrie Irving, and people thought that Kemba was a downgrade. But no, Kemba has actually been really good for them. They had big leaps from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Gordon Hayward shows flashes. Their only weakness really is a center, like a real center. Like Enes Kanter's playing center minutes from Daniel Theis. So their centers aren't very good. Their starting lineups, obviously, Walker, Brown, Tatum, Hayward, and Daniel Theis. That's a very good starting five. Obviously, Hayward's at the 3 and Tatum at the 4. I like when they play small ball. And then meanwhile for Philly, Ben Simmons is a huge loss for this team. He'll be very missed in this series against the Celtics. Joel Embiid's still around, Tobias Harris, Al Horford. I wonder with the Ben Simmons injury if he's going to be back in the starting lineup. Shake Milton's played well for them. And then you have Josh Richardson, who came over in the Butler deal for Miami in the sign-and trade. And then off the bench, you have some nice guys as well. Matthias Thybulle, who I think could be a starter for them down the road. Alec Burks is there. Trey Burke is there. So they have some heat checkers off the bench. For sure, Philadelphia. And then Boston's bench, I alluded to Enes Kanter. He comes off the bench from Javonte Green. Really doesn't play for them. You got Semi Ojeleye, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Brad Wanamaker, point guard, and Marcus Smart, who's their sixth man, and he starts for them sometimes as well. If like Jaylen Brown's out, or if somebody's out, then they go super small and put Jaylen Brown at the 3, and they put him in the 2-guard spot. They'll play with Kemba Walker, and he's capable of playing both guard spots. Marcus Smart. So a pick for the series, I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics in 6 games. I think the loss of Ben Simmons will come back to haunt the Philadelphia 76ers. And Boston to win this series in 6 games, like I predicted, is plus 330. Boston, the sweep is 5-1. Boston in 5 is 3-1. I think that's crazy. That's like the most likely outcome according to Vegas. Boston in 7 is plus 480. Oh, wait a minute. I have Boston in 7, not 6. That's my bad. Boston in 7 over Philadelphia. That's plus 480. I like that value a lot. But plus 330 is Boston in 6, what I initially had, but I forgot that I wrote down 7. So I'm going to go with the 7 call. I like it. I think Embiid can win them 2 games by himself, and maybe Tobias Harris gets hot for a game, and then I think this goes to game 7, and Jason Tatum and the Celtics prevail. Sixers in 7 is plus 650. Sixers in 6 is 9-1. Sixers in 5 is 14-1, and the Sixers to sweep is 32-1. Boston to win the series is minus 480. Philadelphia is plus 350 to win the series. The last series in the Eastern Conference, you have the 4-seeded Miami Heat against the 5-seeded Indiana Pacers. Or no, it's the other way around. Indiana's your 4 and Miami is your 5. That's my bad. So the Pacers, 45-28, Miami 44-29. So 1 game apart. I'm just surprised that Indiana was the 4 seed, not Miami. That I literally thought Miami was the 4 seed. But Pacers were missing Domantas Sabonis throughout the restart because of the injury. TJ Warren's been a revelation for them. Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, Victor Oladipo, and Aaron Holiday. So they've been going small ball, and it's worked out. Justin Holiday coming off the bench with Doug McDermott. Goga Bitadze is getting minutes. TJ McConnell's getting minutes for them. So with the absence of Sabonis, their depth isn't great without Sabonis. And on the other side of the equation with the Miami Heat, you got Goran Dragic, you have Jimmy Butler, you have Bam Adebayo. You also got some other guys, Tyler Herro, Kendrick Nunn, And Kendrick Nunn's missed some time in the restart. Jay Crowder started games for them. Duncan Robinson's been starting games. So is Daniel Jones Jr., who got injured in the game the other day. Kelly Olynyk off the bench. Andre Iguodala off the bench. So their main starters are Bam, Butler, Dragic. Dragic comes off the bench now, my bad. Nunn and Robinson start in the backcourt, and it's Butler, Bam, and Jay Crowder. So that's an interesting starting five. So in terms of a pick to win the series, I'm going to go with your 5-seed Miami Heat. And I'm going to say that the Heat win the series in 6 games. Miami in 6 is plus 310. Not many people are giving the Pacers a chance. Pacers in 7 is 8-1. That is a good value, I think. Miami to sweep is plus 440. Miami in 5 plus 270. Miami in 7 plus 480. Indiana in 6, 11-1. Indiana in 5, 17-1. And Indiana to sweep is 38-1. Pacers to win the series is plus 250. And Miami to win the series is minus 325. Now we'll switch over to the Western Conference. You have the 1-seeded Los Angeles Lakers against the 8-seed Portland Trail Blazers. Lakers 52-19, Portland 35-39. This is going to be a very, very fun series. You got, obviously, LeBron and Anthony Davis. So, LeBron's first time in the playoffs in 2 seasons. Anthony Davis' first time in the playoffs in a couple of seasons as well. Damian Lillard has made the playoffs now in 7 years in a row. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah. 7 straight years with Damian Lillard in the playoffs, which is incredible for that team. So, Lakers side, starting at point guard for them is probably Alex Caruso, you would think. And then you have Danny Green, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and starting at center, JaVale McGee. And then, obviously, Dwight Howard off the bench, KCP, who is obviously Kentavious Caldwell-Pope off the bench. To me, the question for the Lakers is, when does Rajon Rondo come back? If he comes back in the series, there was rumors going around a couple weeks ago that Rondo arrived at the bubble and is working out. So we'll see how true those rumors are if he comes back in this round or the next round, assuming the Lakers get by the Blazers. And on Portland's side, you have the 2 in the backcourt, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Gary Trent Jr. has been a revelation in Orlando. Carmelo Anthony's playing for them, and Jusuf Nurkic. And that's probably their starting 5. They have some interesting guys coming off the bench as well. Such as Hassan Whiteside. And oh, by the way, Zach Collins starts for them, not Gary Trent Jr. Gary Trent Jr. is the guy off the bench. That's my mistake. Mario Hezonja gets bench minutes for them. Fernie Simons, who really has been a disappointment this year for the Blazers, comes off the bench as well. And he really hasn't seen much time. And he was a DNP CD in their play-in win against the Memphis Grizzlies. So in terms of a pick for the series, I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games. I just think ultimately Davis and James will prevail against the backcourt. Best player in the series is LeBron James. Lakers in 6 is plus 320. The consensus, the favorite in Vegas is Lakers in 5 at plus 240. The Lakers to sweep is plus 360. Lakers in 7 is plus 550. Blazers in 7, 8-1. Blazers in 6, 12-1. Blazers in 5, 22-1. Blazers to sweep 50-1. The Lakers are minus 500 to win the series. Portland is plus 360 to win the series. All right. Next series in the Western Conference, you have the 2-seeded Los Angeles Clippers against the 7-seeded Dallas Mavericks. The Clippers went 49-23 this year. Dallas went 43-30. 32. The Clippers are very interesting. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are there. They have an interesting center combination. Montrezl Harrell is actually coming back for them in the restart, so that's good news. And obviously, starting for center them has been Ivica Zubac. Lou Williams comes off the bench. Pat Beverly starts for them, and Marcus Morris, who they got in the trade from the Knicks, starts for them as well. Their bench is very, very deep. Landry Shamet comes off the bench for them. They have some other interesting guys that come off the bench. Reggie Jackson, it's actually been starting for them instead of Patrick Beverly. But Beverly's going to be back, so I think Reggie will go to the bench. And Shamet's been starting for them as well, but sometimes it's normally when Kawhi Leonard sits. So it's going to be very interesting for the Clippers in the postseason. Yeah, their consensus starting lineup is Beverly, George, Leonard, Morris, Zubac. That's what it should be. Patrick Patterson comes off the bench too, so is Joakim Noah. They have a lot of interesting guys off the bench. McGruder, I alluded to before, Michael Green. And then over to the other side, the Dallas Mavericks. This is a team that really got off to a slow start in the bubble. But ultimately, they got going again. They got the big win over the Bucks. They beat the Jazz, beat the Blazers, or came close to beating the Blazers. But yeah, for them it's Doncic, it's Porzingis. That's the foundation of that team. Bojan Marjanovic starts at center. Dorian Finney-Smith and Tim Hardaway Jr. are your wingers. Delon Wright off the bench. Trey Burke is actually on the Mavs. I thought he was on the Philadelphia 76ers. I must have been thinking of somebody else. Maxi Kleber and Justin Jackson. So, interesting players on the Mavs, but ultimately the Clippers have owned the Mavericks this year, and that was even before the bubble. So, I'm going to say the Mavericks win, and I think it's going to be a short series. I really do. I'm going to say 5. I'm concerned a little bit. This is the first time Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis have been in big games like this. They'll gain the experience, obviously, but ultimately, the better team and the deeper team and the Clippers will prevail. Clippers in 5 is plus 270. Vegas has that as the favored outcome. Clips, the sweep is plus 440. Clips in 6 plus 310. Clips in 7 plus 480. Dallas in 7, 8-1. Dallas in 6, 11-1. Dallas in 5, 17-1. And Dallas to sweep 38-1. Clippers minus 500 in the series. Dallas is plus 360 in the series. Now you have the 3-seeded Denver Nuggets against the 6-seeded Utah Jazz. Denver 46-27 on the season. Utah 44-28. Both of these teams have had some interesting restarts. Denver had some injuries early on, but their guys are back. Jamal Murray, Will Barton, Nikola Jokic. Michael Porter Jr. is giving them a new dimension. Bol, I wonder if he's going to get some playing time. He showed some promise in the bubble thus far as well. Jeremy Grant as the 6th man. He's been great for them coming over in that trade from the Thunder. You also got Mason Plumlee off the bench. PJ Dozier off the bench, and Monte Morris, the talented point guard, off the bench as well. Torrey Craig has actually been starting for them with Barton out. But I wonder if they're going to keep him in the starting lineup and have Barton be the 6th man along with Jeremy Grant. But Grant really has done well in the 6th man role, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I think they'll eventually move Craig to the bench. And Paul Millsap starts for them. Forgot about that guy. So it's pretty much been big ball for Denver. So I would think they're starting 5 for the playoffs. Assuming Will Barton's back, it's going to be Murray, Barton, who am I blanking on here? Porter Jr., Millsap, and Jokic. That's what I think it should be. So the only change I would make is replace Will Barton, or put Will Barton in Torrey Craig's spot. That's all. And then for Utah, they've been up and down in the restart. They've had some good wins. There's been games where they sat guys, but still remain competitive in the games. I think their starting five will be Donovan Mitchell. Maybe for the first game or two, because Mike Conley is not in the bubble due to the birth of his child. So I wonder if they're going to put Jordan Clarkson in the starting five to be in the backcourt with Donovan Mitchell. Or do they put Gorgis Niang in the starting lineup and go with Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Niang, O'Neal, and Gobert for their starting five? So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And obviously with Conley, I think they're probably going to ride that Conley, Mitchell, Ingles, O'Neal, Gobert five to start and finish the games. I alluded to Jordan Clarkson as a possible start candidate when Conley's out. Same with Gorgis Niang. Tony Bradley's off the bench for them as well. And then a surprise guy could potentially be former Yale player Miye Oni, who is a sharpshooter from three and could be like a poor man Steve Novak potentially for them. In terms of a pick for the series, I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets in 7 games. I think this is going to be an awesome series out west. 2 super underrated teams. Denver in 7 is plus 480. The favorite outcome, Denver in 5 at 3-1. I think that is an overreaction due to the Mike Conley news. I really do. That him leaving the bubble. I just think that Utah's better than that. So plus 480 Nuggets in 7. Nuggets to sweep plus 460. Nuggets in 6 plus 340. Utah in 7 plus 650. Utah in 6 plus 850. Utah in 5 14-1. Utah to sweep 36-1. Denver to win the series minus 265. The Jazz to win the series at plus 210. And last but not least, in the first round, you have the 4-seeded Houston Rockets against the 5-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. The Rockets haven't had the best of restarts as Russell Westbrook got injured. So he'll be missing the first couple playoff games. So the starting 5 for the Rockets is going to be James Harden, Eric Gordon, Robert Covington, PJ Tucker, and probably Ben McLemore or Jeff Green. Like, they don't have a real center. That's the problem with the Rockets, and that's why I really don't trust them. They just have to shoot their way to a championship, in my opinion. So, I'm concerned with the Rockets, especially without Westbrook. And obviously, if Westbrook's there, their starting 5 would have been Westbrook, Harden, Eric Gordon, Robert Covington, and PJ Tucker. So, the Russell Westbrook absence is a huge deal to me. And off the bench, Luke Mbah, Mute, Damari Carroll. I alluded to Austin Rivers before. Tyson Chandler's not seeing any time. Maybe he will see time in this series against the Thunder. So, you never know. And then, obviously, who am I blanking on here? Somebody from Houston. They got, Chris Clemens off the bench, too, and Michael Frazier. Those are guys I really don't trust. And then Jeff Green off the bench, too, if I didn't mention him. So I'm very concerned about the Rockets. And Oklahoma City Thunder, I thought had some good moments in the restart as well. They've had some impressive wins and some duds. Chris Paul is obviously the reason why they're here in Orlando and in the 8. He really did not mail it in like people thought he was and asking for a trade, but no, he's here. He helped the young guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander develop. The rest of the starting lineup, other than the 2 the guards, you have Daniel Gallinari and Steven Adams in the front court.
And then starting at the small forward position is Nguyen Stewart, who has been a surprising contributor for them, as well as Darius Baisley off the bench. He's kind of emerged as their sixth man in a weird way. And then Andre Roberson, it's good to see him back and healthy. And then they have off the bench Hamidou Diallo. Nerlens Noel is the backup big man. So they have some interesting players, Oklahoma City. And guess what? I'm going to pick the Thunder to upset the Rockets. And I think that Chris Paul is going to be a big reason why. Obviously, the Westbrook injury doesn't help. I'm going to pick the Thunder to win in 6 games, and that is 6-1. I love that so much in terms of a pick. The favorite outcome is Rockets in 7 at plus 340. I just think that they're thinking, Westbrook back by game 3, and then it's going to be competitive from there. Rockets in 6 is plus 360. Rockets in 5 is 5-1. Rockets to sweep 14-1. My pick with the Thunder in 6 is 6-1. Thunder in 7 is plus 650. Thunder in 5 is 7-1, and Thunder to sweep is 10-1. The Rockets are minus 162 to win the series, and the Thunder are plus 132 to win the series. So it's going to be a fun first round of the playoffs for sure. The semifinal. 1-seeded Bucks against the 5-seeded Heat. I think that there's a lot of people that would pick the Heat in this series because of the stigma of the big games for the Heat, and Eric Spoelstra is a better playoff coach than Mike Budenholzer and Butler and Bam. Butler's been in a bunch of big games. Bam, this is his first set of real big games as well. But I'm gonna go Milwaukee in 6 over Miami. I think that this is gonna be a big series for Giannis. I think Middleton can do respectable against Jimmy Butler. So give me Milwaukee in 6 over Miami. The other side of the East, you have the 2-seeded Toronto Raptors against the 3-seeded Boston Celtics. Obviously, a fantastic series in the East. The reigning NBA champions against the Celts. Stars galore with Siakam and Lowry and Tatum and Brown and Walker. But ultimately, I'm going to go with the reigning champs. The best player in the series is probably Jason Tatum, but I'm going to go Toronto here over the Celts in 7 games because of their experience from the past, and maybe they get a lucky bounce or two, and that their team's healthy. And I think that their big guys will get advantages in the series. So give me the Raps in 7 over the Celts. Over to the West, 1-seeded Los Angeles Lakers against the 5-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. So this is going to be a fun series between these two teams. You have LeBron James against Chris Paul. That's a fun subplot. Also, you got Anthony Davis and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You got Billy Donovan, who should be the coach of the year, against Frank Vogel, who I think has done a marvelous job with the Lakers this year. But the pick, I'm going to go Lakers in 5 over Oklahoma City. I think it's a letdown for the Thunder after a exciting upset over Russell Westbrook and the Rockets. And they're going to be giddy. I think that this is a competitive 5, though. I'm going to say that Chris Paul carries them to a win. And I'm going to say that there's a game where maybe the Lakers win by 2. And maybe there's an overtime game in there as well. So give me the Lakers over the Thunder in a 5-gamer that's actually a more competitive than you would think in a 5-game series. And then the last of the semifinal series is 2-seeded Los Angeles Clippers against the 3-seeded Denver Nuggets. Good series here. You would think Nikola Jokic has a huge advantage in the series because he's the best big guy in the series, and he would just put up a double-double or a triple-double every night against the Clips. But ultimately, the Clippers are the better team and the deeper team, led by George and Leonard. So, give me the Clippers over the Denver Nuggets in 6 games. I think this one's going to be fun too, with a bunch of big names and high-scoring games in the series as well. Conference finals will start in the East. You have got the 1-seeded Milwaukee Bucks against the 2-seeded Toronto Raptors, so you got a rematch from last year. Should be a lot of fun. Obviously, no Kawhi Leonard, which hurts the Raptors. And this is where I think it finally comes back to bite them, that Kawhi Leonard's no longer on their team. I think this is where Giannis finally breaks through and makes the NBA Finals for the first time in his career. So, give me the Milwaukee Bucks over the Toronto Raptors in 6 games. And over to the Western Conference, you have the 1-seeded Los Angeles Lakers against the 2-seeded Los Angeles Clippers in what is going to be thought out to be the best series of the year. And between the 2 teams in LA, the best 2 teams in the league, 4 of the biggest stars in the league in Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And maybe Rajon Rondo's back for the Lakers in this series. So most people, I would think, would pick the Clippers in this series due to their depth and due to some advantages they have too, including at the guards, and they're better defensively than the Lakers, some would think. But I don't know if they're really better than the Lakers defensively. The Lakers were a good defensive team this season and still have been, and gotten some big stops in some of these restart games, even though that they did not have a good record in restart. But they had the West's 1 seed locked up anyway. So, because of the powers of LeBron James, I think that he'll take down Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and the Los Angeles Clippers. I'm going to say the Lakers get it done in 7 games, so they advance their first NBA Finals since 2010 and LeBron's first Finals in 2 seasons. And now the NBA Finals. You had your Eastern Conference best record in the NBA, Milwaukee Bucks against your West-seeded 1 seed Los Angeles Lakers. This should be a phenomenal series with 3 of the biggest stars, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think 2 underrated coaches, Mike Budenholzer and Frank Vogel. I think that Budenholzer gets too much hate due to the fact that he never got his teams to go over the top with Atlanta and now with Milwaukee. And Vogel, I think, got a raw deal with both Indiana and Orlando. I think it was ridiculous that the Pacers fired him for Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan, by the way, has done a great job with the Pacers. And then he was hired by the Magic, and that was obviously a raw deal as they fired him after 2 seasons. And now he's coaching the Lakers with LeBron and Anthony Davis. And I think that karma is on the Lakers' side. And I think that LeBron James is super duper motivated to prove everybody wrong about how he was in so many finals is because the East was weak and this lazy narrative that's out there. He's heard all that jazz. I think that they'll get it done over Giannis and the Bucks, and I'm going to say Lakers over the Bucks in 6 games as the Lakers will win the championship, and obviously they'll dedicate this run to the late, great Kobe Bryant. And I think the Finals MVP will be none other than LeBron James. So that's it for the predictions. Miscellaneous predictions for the playoffs and afterwards a little bit for some of the teams that I think will be eliminated before the finals and whatnot. Okay. Rockets fire Mike D'Antoni. This is something I predicted before the season. He's somebody that is in the last year of his contract. His teams have never gotten over the top. Yes, Westbrook injured, but obviously he may be back for the latter part of the series, but maybe it's too little too late. So the Thunder, I really think, are going to beat him in the first round, and Mike D'Antoni will pay the price, and maybe they go out and hire Jeff Van Gundy or somebody else
that I could see Daryl Morey making a change there. Maybe Kenny Atkinson, maybe somebody you wouldn't expect. And now I'm going to predict another coaching change, this time in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to say the 76ers finally fire Mike Brown. This is somebody that I think has been very, very criticized by NBA fans and the media because he has not gone over the top with a talented Sixers team. I think that he pays the price, and I think the Sixers knew that they were underachieving the season even with Ben Simmons. There's a lot of people that think that he'll be brought back due to the fact that Ben Simmons is hurt, and that'll be his quote-unquote free pass. But that's what makes this prediction bold, because a lot of people don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I think it's bolder than the Mike D'Antoni prediction. So I'm going to say the 76ers finally fire Mike Brown. Multiple game-winning buzzer beaters throughout the playoffs. I love buzzer beaters. It's such a fun thing about the NBA. We normally do get one or two a year in the postseason. Last year we had the famous Kawhi shot against the Sixers in Game 7. We had the Damian Lillard buzzer beater to end that series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to predict that Damian Lillard actually hits another buzzer beater against the Lakers. So that should be a fun thing to follow. So yeah, multiple buzzer beaters throughout the playoffs yet again. Injuries or opt-outs will come back to bite a team. I think that the Utah Jazz losing Bojan Bogdanovic can come back to bite them. I think that is the most obvious one to think about. And the other one in the East, Domantas Sabonis for Indiana against the Heat. If those two players were playing their respective series, I give both of those teams legit shots to win. And I think that Bogdanovic, will be proven to be missed the most. Because I still think Miami would beat Indiana even with Sabonis. And actually, I do think the Nuggets would still beat the Jazz even with Bogdanovic, but I think that the Jazz-Nugget series goes 7 even without Bogdanovic, and that's why I think that his absence will be felt the most in the playoffs among teams that have lost players due to injuries or opt-outs. And obviously the other one I alluded to earlier, Jonathan Isaacs for Milwaukee, but if he was there, I probably would have picked Milwaukee in 5 or maybe still a sweep in the first round. And there's a couple other ones that I thought about too. Avery Bradley with the Lakers could be another one that could come back to bite them if they lose to the Clippers or to somebody in an earlier round. No positive COVID tests. Obviously, I'm being optimistic here. There hasn't been a positive COVID test since before the bubble came back. So, there you go. No positive COVID tests. And I think it'll prove that the bubble is working. That'll lead to talk that the start of next season could very well start in a bubble, and how I could see them doing like a tournament kind of thing to determine some of the regular season standings. Mike Breen has a double bang call. Normally you don't see that from Mike Breen. The most obvious one, obviously the Stephen Curry half-court shot against the Thunder. It was almost a half-court shot in the regular season when the Warriors were winning 72 games. But I think that there's going to be a special three-point shot, an iconic one, to the point where you'll hear the double bang come from Mike Breen. And my last miscellaneous prediction, I'm going to say that there will be a lot of talk of Giannis being the Finals MVP in a losing effort. We saw this with LeBron James 6 years ago when his first Cavs season and his second stint when they went up against the Warriors and they lost in 6. There was a lot of talk that LeBron could have gotten the Finals MVP in a losing effort. I think Giannis will have a tremendous Finals, keeping the Bucks in the games. So I'm going to say that the media will create a Giannis should be the MVP in a losing effort narrative, but ultimately LeBron James will get it. But it won't be unanimous. I'll predict that. LeBron James Finals MVP will not be unanimous, as Giannis will have a monster series and will get Finals MVP votes in a losing effort. So there you have it, the 2020 NBA playoff predictions show. I'll be back tomorrow with my regular show, recapping everything from the weekend and whatnot. I hope you guys have a good rest of the night and hope you guys enjoy the NBA playoffs.